Welcome to the 10-Minute Treasurer. My name is Jeff Pospisil, and in this video, I'm going to be looking at the United Methodist Health Plan, and this is going to be very Dakotas UMC specific. The Dakotas UMC, we're on Hellflex, which is provided through Westpath, and I know there are a lot of other conferences that are on Hellflex, so this will be slightly applicable to them. But we're also going to look at how we bill it too. So that's going to be very Dakotas UMC specific. So hopefully this helps you. Let's get to it. Here is a screenshot for one of our churches and their church statement. And on there you'll see this Fund 4 Hellflex direct bill. So that is the billing for one of our churches in 2021, that $14,254 is what they paid for their pastor's health insurance. This is a church served by a full-time pastor on our health insurance. Beginning in 2022, we are allowing pastors to opt out of coverage. So before 2022, if you were full-time, you had to be enrolled in Hellflex. And so we decided to allow for an opt-out because we wanted to expand this benefit down to 3/4 time pastors. So a lot of 3/4 time pastors, they didn't want the coverage, so maybe they dropped down from full-time to 3/4 time to drop out of coverage, drop out of that mandatory participation. But there are some that wanted coverage, even though they were 3/4 time, and their church had to kind of hobble together something. So this provided an option to go through Hellflex to receive some kind of coverage. And so if you're a pastor and you're full-time or 3/4 time in the Dakotas, here are the valid reasons for opting out. And this is set in the plan document, so there's not a whole lot we could do to change this. But if you're covered by a former or current employer, that would count. If you're covered under a spouse's employer-provided plan, so let's say your spouse works for the state of North Dakota and you're covered under that plan, you can opt out. If you are covered by Champus or TRICARE, so that's that military coverage, then you can opt out. Or if you're covered by Medicaid or Medicare. By the way, there's like a little note there, like some of our pastors, when they get to age 65, they can choose to go on Medicare, but the church cannot pressure them to go on Medicare. So that's one of the rules. Anyway, so it has to be the pastor's idea to go on Medicare. So here are the billing amounts depending on if your pastor is enrolled or opted out, and if they're full-time or 3/4 time in the Dakotas UMC. And hopefully I can explain it all right to how we came up with the amount. So first of all, that $14,123, that is if your pastor, if you have a full-time pastor enrolled in Hellflex. And how we came up with that amount, that's the same as if you have a single pastor, a pastor that's married, or a pastor with a family, even though those coverages are different. But basically, we looked at all those that were enrolled, and then we averaged that amount to come up with that $14,123. That avoids these huge swings that you might experience, or for churches really wanting a single pastor because it's cheaper or anything like that. So we blended that all together, and that's how we got that. So for those that are full-time that opt out, it's going to eventually be half of that normal cost. Right now it's discounted as we're making this transition because this is the first year that we're doing it. So it's $2,354 currently if the pastor opted out, but that's going to work its way up to closer to $7,000. The pastors that are 3/4 time and enrolled, they get that smaller amount, as well as kind of a weird situation, but sometimes a pastor will be serving full-time at a church and then they'll retire and stay there, or maybe they'll be followed up by a pastor that's retired and on an interim basis. And so if that's the case, we can still consider that a full-time position there. And so they would normally be enrolled in Hellflex, and so they're still gonna get billed. And this is kind of one of those rare ones, but we decided that's the proper way to do it. And then if your church is 3/4 time, or your pastor's 3/4 time and they opt out, it's really 1/4 of this total amount, and that's going to be discounted quite a bit for the next 2 years as we work into that. But that why we decided to do that, still build churches even though they're opted out, is that helps provide for this flexibility. So you may have a 3/4 time pastor that doesn't need health insurance right now, but this will make it easier for us to recruit by being able to offer this benefit through you paying that little bit for that opt-out. So what I wanted to do is take you through a comparison of what this change actually did. So I'm going to look at those pastors that were eligible in 2022 and what did it look like from 2021. So in 2021, we had 76% enrolled. That was our full-time pastors. They had to be enrolled. It was mandatory. We had 24% were ineligible. Those were our 3/4 time pastors. And then we had 0% that were able to opt out because you couldn't opt out back then. So here's what it looked like in 2022. You had 72% were enrolled, and I have an FT there. I don't know why, but this is just enrolled. So this is a mixture of full-time and 3/4 time pastors. You had 1% were ineligible, and I think this was our retiree. We have a retiree or two, and they were just ineligible. And then we had 27% opt out. So it's a little bit more interesting when you dive into the details. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to break down that 72% first. So 72%, 68% of that is the full-time enrolled, and then the other 4% is 3/4 time enrolled. So that was a big change. We had that 1% that opted or that was ineligible. That again was our retiree that I told you about. And then that remaining piece, that 27%, 8% of those were full-time opt-outs, and then the other 19% was 3/4 time opt-outs. So what we did is we made it so that some of our full-time people could opt out, and some of our 3/4 time could enroll. And hopefully that change has been worth the little extra stress of a change, and I think it has. I think the biggest effect as it has made is it no longer forces people to go 3/4 time to opt out of coverage, and so they don't lose out on their retirement benefit. And then those that are 3/4 time, they don't have to look for a full-time employment or a full-time appointment in order to get coverage. So I think that's been a positive change. It's helped us be a little bit more honest in our appointment process. And by the way, here's just the really the 10-second tour of what the Hellflex plans are. We have a Hellflex Exchange. And so what that means is our pastors have the option of looking through 6 different plans, choosing one of 6 different plans. It doesn't affect what the church is billed, by the way, but it does. The pastor has to pay for the difference. So if they choose a very expensive plan, like these gold ones here, these ones here, H1500, C2000, B1000, those ones are more expensive. The pastor has to pay the difference versus the cheapest plan, the H3000. That one, there's not as much of a difference to make up. We have 3 of them that are HSA plans, meaning that the pastor can put aside money into a health savings account. We have a couple of them that they're called consumer-driven health plans, where money goes into a health reimbursement account. So that's a little bit different. The health savings account, that stays with the pastor no matter where they go. If they leave the denomination, leave ministry, that money stays with them. The HRA accounts, that stays with the denomination. And then this is the B1000. That's your typical PPO plan with the copays and everything. The pastors, they do have a tool that helps them decide, and it's a really good tool. It's called Alex, and it walks them through. So how many hospital visits, how many prescriptions, how many, all these other kinds of things that, and it just shows you how much you're going to pay roughly in your premiums as well as out of pocket. So a really solid tool that I've enjoyed. All right, I hope that has helped you understand the United Methodist health plans. Again, I'd love to hear from you if you found this helpful, or if you wish to know about more related to this kind of stuff, that's okay too. This is a ministry of the Finance Office as well as the Dakotas United Methodist Foundation. And I pray that you are blessed by this.